Actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
It's Blissen Up. I'm your host, Rachel Lang, intuitive astrologer. Get starstruck with inspiring guests and engaging conversations. Blissen Up starts now. Hello everyone. Hi, John.
Hello.
Welcome to Blissen Up.
Thank you.
This is Rachel Lang. I'm your host, and I'm an intuitive astrologer and healer based in the Los Angeles area, and this is Blissen Up. Today, we are going to have an exciting show. We're going to talk a lot about astrology, and we're going to sort of explore transits, explore challenging influences and eclipses and all kinds of things that you might hear about and might sort of have some fear around. But we're going to talk about how you can make the most of challenging influences in your life and what is the greater spiritual significance. So we're going to get very hopefully very esoteric, very spiritual, and then we're going to get very practical as well. So how do you apply this to your everyday life? So, as you're listening today, have your charts out, and if you need your charts, you can chat me up in the chat room, and during the break, I'll pull out some charts for you, cool, and take some questions. You can chat questions. You can call in. This is all about helping you navigate through some of the really, really intense influences that we have going on this month. This month is full of intensity. We are in an eclipse tunnel, which means we're between a lunar and a solar eclipse. And that's kind of a real sort of like, so if you think about like each eclipse is sort of like a big breaking point. And so in the middle of the breaking point, there's all kinds of tension. And there's this feeling that something's going to change, something's going to shift. And so you might even be experiencing that in your lives. You might be experiencing that especially in terms of relationships. There's a lot of old stuff trying to surface and trying to come up. And so we've got to find ways to make space for that, and space and time. I think it's so hard to carve out time to do some of that deep personal work and to sort of navigate some of the inner caves and the inner caverns that contain so much rich information. And so we're going to talk about how to illuminate those spaces in your life and how to use astrology as a symbol, helping you to do that. I'm joined today by John Williams, my amazing producer and incredibly intuitive, psychic, wonderful love. And I just found out singer as well.
Oh, thank you.
John, we might have to have you serenade us after the break.
Wow.
I won't put him on the spot right now, but we might twist his arm a little bit. And if I see some responses in the chat room, maybe he'll give us a couple of bars. So I'm joined by John, and today's show, I actually am so excited. Today's show is sponsored by Donnie and Ursula Save the World.
Oh, cool.
Yes, Sharon Wild was my first guest, and she's a good friend of mine, and she is she's sponsoring today's show. And so if you aren't familiar with Donnie and Ursula Save the World, then you need to check it out. Go to DonnieandUrsula.com. DonnieandUrsula.com. And check out Donnie and Ursula Save the World. It's a book. It's hilarious. It's the funniest book about love, sex, and GMO seeds you'll ever read. And I have read it twice. I love it. I love it. And I actually draw on certain parts of it just because it's so much fun. And it has a lot of like really pertinent information about the issue of GMOs and agribusiness and how one of the antagonists in the show is this agribusiness giant is trying to own all of the seeds in the world. And so Donnie and Ursula are superheroes who sort of, their love inspires bravery, and they end up saving Earth. They end up saving the world, but you have to find out how, because it's just an adventure. So if you don't have time to read, the book is actually coming out on audiobook next week. So that's exciting. Yeah. So check it out, DonnieandUrsula.com. And so thanks so much, Sharon and Donnie and Ursula and Earth and all the other characters for sponsoring today's show. And we'll have an opportunity to show you a little clip of the book trailer at our break. So today, let's dive right in. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody's like, I think wanting to know how are these eclipses going to influence them. So let me just explain to you a little bit about what's happening this week, so that you can have some framework for how to apply this to your life. And and I want to sort of back up just a moment and talk about my philosophy of astrology, because I think that this is, I was talking to my dad about it last weekend, and astrology isn't like, it doesn't like dictate our lives. Nothing dictates our life. Nothing tells us, that you have to do this, you don't have to do this. But, in my philosophy is that astrology is a set of symbols, and everything in our experience is symbol. If a butterfly flies in front of us at an opportune time, or, for me, owls always appear to me. Like I will see an owl, like, in a tree at a significant transition in my life, or when I'm supposed to pay attention to something. There are these symbols like that are in our environment, and the divine. I call the divine God just because I was raised Christian, but you could use Allah or Buddha or goddess or spirit, universe. You can use any word that you want to, but the divine has given us all of these tools. The divine participates in our life. It mediates with using things in our environment, and so it really gives us sort of guidelines and symbols to draw on to understand ourselves, understand our world, understand our path, our purpose, and where we're going, and to help us figure out when we're off track. So astrology, I approach astrology as a set of symbols that we can interpret on a number of different levels to really gain insight about how God wants to participate in our life, or how the divine wants to participate in our life. And Elizabeth Johnson is a feminist theologian, and she writes a lot about symbol and about how symbol functions. Symbol is it is polysemic. It is multiple layers. It's really like symbols function on so many different levels, and especially when we're looking at spiritual symbols, they function esoterically to sort of define our higher purpose, and they function very practically. So, for example, when you're looking astrologically at what's happening, like we could look at Mercury retrograde. What is Mercury? What is Mercury symbolic of? Well, Mercury is, did you hear that? I almost said Ebola. It sounded like Ebola. Mercury is not symbolic of Ebola.
Thank God,
but
right?
we're going to talk about that, perhaps.
Yeah.
But, Mercury is symbolic of communication. It's how we think. But it's also, it's not just communication with one another. That's one level. But it's also communication with the divine. And it's communication with our helpers in spirit, and our ancestors and our loved ones, and with everything. Communication happens on so many different ways. It happens verbally, non-verbally, through actions, and communication happens with symbol too. So, for example, we talked about the butterfly. A lot of my clients say, I always see little butterflies flying around. Is that my loved one in spirit? And I think that, it's symbolic of whatever it means to you in that moment. So that's communication right there. That you identifying, this butterfly is in my path, this means something. What does it mean? And so the more you fine-tune your radar and learn how to stop in the moment and pay attention to those symbols, the more you can avoid major pitfalls when some of these astrological transits come in. We're going to talk about some of those later on in today's show. But, you'll be able to really make sort of an assessment of how the divine is participating in your life, giving you these symbols of transits, of planetary influences to help guide your path, to help guide you. And, each astrological sign and planet has different elements: earth, air, fire, water. And so it helps give us. My dad said astrology is nuanced, and I love that term. It's not an absolute. It's not like, black and white. You have to do this, or you can't do this. God, the divine is loving. Would never say to you, John, I'm going to put Pluto on top of your sun, and I'm going to destroy everything. God would say, I love you so much that I really want you to grow. I really want you to evolve. I really want you to learn something. And so I'm going to give you this symbol, which is Pluto, which is the god of the underworld, which is death and rebirth. And I want to recreate something in you. I want to take your sun, which, the sun rules the heart. Mm-hmm. The sun is the center of our lives. The sun represents and symbolizes how we shine in the world and what we contribute and what we're here to do. And so God Divine says, she says, I'm going to take Pluto and I'm going to put him on your sun. And I am going to show you what areas in your life you need to recreate so that you can shine more brightly. I want to recreate your heart. I want to heal your heart. I want to open it up and expand it. And so I'm going to have to kill some things off. I'm going to have to, not in a bad way, but there's some things that you're going to have to let go of. And so when we understand these symbols, then we can start really making changes and growing in our lives. So we have to understand what parts of the body the planets rule, and what parts of, because the body is connected to our energetic body, our atmic, our etheric, our emotional bodies. They're all connected. We're all one. And so when a planet rules our physical body, it's also ruling a connecting point in our esoteric or atmic bodies. So, yeah.
So what if Pluto is opposition Saturn?
If Pluto,
right now?
Okay, so Pluto's opposition Saturn,
Yes.
so we look at what is Saturn.
Right, it's a teacher, right?
Saturn is the teacher, but it is like the strict teacher. It is the authoritarian teacher. It's also structure. So it's like representative of the father, which, and it's interesting because in the Middle Ages, Saturn was associated with Satan, with like the devil, with like this, you see all these woodcut images of Saturn as this like, nasty sort of ruler. And so we have this idea that Saturn represents our whatever forces are limiting us in our lives. And a lot of that we relate to authoritarian structures. So if Pluto is opposing Saturn, then what's happening is we are having to recreate our own internal structures. So structures is, the technical stuff, how we organize our day, how we organize our lives. And depending on where Saturn is in the chart, then we have to really come into wherever Saturn is in the chart. That's the area of our life that we are restructuring. So if Saturn is in the second house, for example, second house is money, resources, priorities. And when Saturn's in the second house and Pluto's in the eighth, which is like death and sex and other people's money and like, occult matters, which means like things operating beneath the surface. When Pluto's up in the eighth house, we're already getting a really big dose of going in deep and reframing our psychological makeup and sort of working with some of that underworld stuff, the stuff that propels us from beneath, so the subconscious mind. And so Saturn, Pluto opposing Saturn might technically, shift some financial, might shift your finances. You might lose a job, or you might, lose some resources, or money might be flying out the window. But it's necessary, because then you look at what are your priorities. Are you really doing the kind of work? Are you making money doing something that's authentic, that's honest? If you're not, then Pluto's gonna knock that apart. Pluto's Pluto's there to say, wait, no, this is wrong. For example, like Pluto was discovered on February 18th, 19. And so at that time, we had the big stock market crash, and we had that was the beginning of the Great Depression. And so we saw a lot, so that Pluto energy is all about like rocking things, like rocking who would think at that time that the stock market would crash, and that all of your investments, all of your hard work, everything that you earned would all of a sudden be worthless. So Pluto comes in, and it's like discovered, and it's made a planet. It's so we could look at the symbol of that and the symbolism of Pluto, and then and see how that sort of that corporate structure and we had to rebuild our society, we had to rebuild our country, our economic sources, our economic structures. And that's very much, Scorpio is the planet that Pluto rules, and Scorpio is the sign that rules other people's money, finances, investments, those kind of things. So we had to look at how we viewed those and really where our priorities were as a country. And so Pluto was made a planet at this crucial time in our history, and then it was demoted. Then right before, right around 2008, when we had the whole the revisiting of the Depression and the possibility, the huge recession, the possibility of another depression. We looked at Pluto and said, we don't want that anymore. Let's crash that. Let's diminish him. Let's make him a dwarf. And so and right around that time, I know I'm I'm going to get back to what's happening right now.
But no, it's great. It's great information.
So right around that time, we started seeing the discovery of all of these really cool, well, not the discovery, because the asteroids were discovered in the 19th century, but we started to really pick them apart and name them. Like Eris, for example, was another dwarf planet who is the female warrior princess, we called her Xena for a little while. So we have this really powerful feminine voices coming in from the background, because the asteroids are in the background. We can't really see them as much in the sky as we can see Jupiter, for example, which is the biggest planet, or the sun, or the moon, or Mercury, or Mars. But all these asteroids started coming in right at the sort of the onset of the postmodern era, when we started looking at the particular voices and seeing how we could draw the particular into the universal, and starting to shine lights on voices that have been marginalized. And so these asteroids come in, and we start really playing with them. We start really working with them. We start understanding their symbolism. And there are so many feminine ones. There's Ceres, who is the Mother Earth, and this real earthy sort of fertile goddess. And we have Pallas, Athena, and we have Juno, and we've got all of these really, really rich, Lilith, for example, the wild woman. So we have all these voices that have been oppressed, that have been stuffed into the background, and now we're seeing how in our world and how our culture, we can really start awakening those and using those in our practices and in our lives. So it's exciting to see how astrology functions as symbol.
And I like how you're referring to it from the past, so that we can see what in the present, what's going on. So it's good to just know the influences and how they affect us in the past, to know how they might affect us in the present, and the future for that matter.
Sure. And and what it does is it sets up a story for us, a storyline for us to follow, because we're mythologically based. Our foundation, our history is so much tied to the mythologies that we've lived in. Eastern mythology connects to Western, connects to Christian, connects to, Antarctican, we live by story. And later in the show, after the break, I really want to talk about how you can use story and narrative to shape your life. But first, before we go to a break, I know I'm running a little bit long.
It's okay.
So before we go to a break, I want to talk about what's happening this week and astrologically. And if there are any questions, please feel free to call, to chat. Okay, so this week, today's influences are great, aren't they?
It feels like
it. It feels like it. Yeah. I hope everyone listening today has plans to go out tonight, because the moon's in Leo. And when the moon is in Leo, it's just it's a time to get dressed up. It's a time to look good. It's a time to go flirt with other people, to, sort of make it, it's fun. Moon in Leo is fun. And, it's interesting, when I started studying astrology, I actually had an astrological daily planner, and every single day I tracked where the moon was and what it was doing, because the moon moves really fast. It moves through a sign every 2 or 3 days. And so it's really easy to feel the changes, like to feel the influences of the moon, and you can understand how how if the moon is in Libra, for example, or the moon is in today's Leo, everyone sort of feels this Leo energy, feels like what it would be like to be a Leo, and so it can really help to understand, like like studying the motion of the moon can really help to understand what the signs mean, what the signs influence, and so the moon's in Leo, and it urges us to express ourselves. And today it's nicely aspecting Jupiter, which is the planet of luck and expansion. It's going to do a little dance because Leo dances, it expresses itself creatively. Dance with Venus, Mercury, and the Sun. And so that is just going to open up opportunities to play, like socialize. Then Saturday, tomorrow, the moon enters Virgo. And I have to say that for my Virgo and Pisces friends, when the moon's in Virgo or the moon's in Pisces, they usually have like this crisis point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's like, it just triggers your critical, analytical mind, and it's just like, you can get stuck there. So try not to do that, to get too caught into the details. Then on Tuesday, we have the moon entering Libra, which is all about harmony, balance, relationship. All of those things are focused. And this Tuesday and Wednesday, things really heat up astrologically. Like really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do. So the sun leaves Libra and moves into Scorpio. And so, and so when that happens, we've also got an eclipse, a solar eclipse, and a new moon. And so that is, that emphasizes it's all in Scorpio. Mm-hmm. So we talked about Pluto and Pluto ruling Scorpio and what that means. And a lot of times what happens, with Scorpio rules matters of like sex, death, other people's money, inherited resources, and our personal power. It's like, where do we derive our power from? It's that second chakra, which is, I told you I was going to get spiritual today and esoteric, but it's that like center of our creativity and the center of our power. It's that fire inside, and all of that is going to get ignited with this eclipse, and it's going to especially impact relationships because ultimately Scorpio and Pluto wants us to, that sign just wants us to nothing's light. It wants us to connect. It wants us to focus on intimacy. And so it's going to sort of break open any barriers that we have psychologically, emotionally, physically, to really connecting, to being united with others and with the earth. And so that eclipse, right now we're feeling the tension of it because we're in this tunnel, this eclipse tunnel. And when we get into the solar eclipse on Wednesday, it's going to sort of culminate and reach this sort of pivotal point, this apex, and from there we can really start seeing changes in our life, and that's what solar eclipses do. Solar eclipses always sort of illuminate the things, the parts of ourselves that are hidden, and once the light is shown on those parts, we can never dim them. We can never forget what we see. And so your choice is to do something with it, to take action. And a lot of times under a solar eclipse, we have breakups, we have job changes, we have firings, we have, get-togethers, we have parties, we have really significant life-changing influences. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can make the most of these influences that are happening. So please feel free to ask any kind of questions, to call in. We want to hear from you, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Mother Earth here. If I do say so myself, I've written an outrageous romantic mishap adventure about these two. This poor girl never felt any pleasure down there. But once she met him, great sex turned a cynical schlub and a granola gal with shut-down chakras into superheroes beyond their wildest imaginations and neurotic existences. There's bad guys, plotting to poison all the seeds of the world. There's good guys, desperate to spread their special spores everywhere to stop them. And there's our heroes, and lots of other crazies working together to pull it off. If love can make you brave, if sex can make you come alive, if there's still time to save yours truly, M. Earth, then you gotta read this book, where my whole world falls apart, and rebels and lovers and magic. Just read it already.
Donnie and Ursula, Save the World by Sharon Weil.
Yeah, but I told her what to write.
The funniest novel about love, sex, and GMOs you'll ever read. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audiobook wherever really good books are sold. Donnie and Ursula Save the World.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. You're listening to Blissen Up. I am your host, Rachel Lang, and I'm here with John Williams.
Hello.
Hi. And we're talking today about eclipses and the sun moving into Scorpio and all of the symbolism of astrology, and we're talking about all kinds of great juicy stuff. So if you're just joining us, we had a question actually, which is, I talked about the eclipse tunnel and how we're in an eclipse tunnel, and someone asked, what is the difference between a lunar and solar eclipse, and what does it mean to be in an eclipse tunnel? And so I'll talk about that, and then I want to sort of start talking about how do you understand the spiritual significance of any astrological influence, any transit that you're in, and sort of what that means. So the eclipse, an eclipse basically, like eclipse is the moon rules water, and we are primarily made of water. We're like 95% water or something like that. And if you think about like the moon, what happens with the full moon is that you see the ocean, like the waters in the ocean, like the waves ebb and flow, and so the moon's pole, the moon moves big bodies of water, and what happens is when big bodies of water move, the earth moves underneath. And so we see like little earthquakes happen, and we see the influence of the big bodies of water moving creates shifts, creates changes, creates tectonic shifts, and so we can look at, again, symbolic. What is water? What does water symbolize? Water symbolizes our emotions. It symbolizes how we cleanse ourselves. Like cleansing, clearing, purifying. When we drink water, we're clearing our system and we're helping things move. We're helping our joints move. We're helping the myofascial tissue, the fluids in our bodies, release stuck points. And so that's what eclipses do. And so looking at also at the symbolism of the earth moving, what is the earth? The earth is the material stuff in our life. It is the practical, the material, like the financial, the resources, all of our stuff. It's our physical bodies. It's also our connection to the planet and our connection to others on this planet. And so when we have an eclipse, a lunar eclipse usually is a purifying time that cleans out sort of like our subconscious, parts of our subconscious, maybe old patterns, old things that, like if you have a repeating pattern in your life where you might gravitate toward partners or to friendships who represent like mother or father in your life, or who become projections of some of those old childhood things, those patterns get formed. They get hardwired in our subconscious minds when we're young. And so what an eclipse does is it says, hey John, hey Rachel, hey everyone listening, you've got this stuff. You've got these big stuck plates, like these big stuck pieces, and we want to shift them open. We want to crack them. We want to break them open so that you can see what's underneath, and you can see some of the rich, beautiful parts of yourself that might be hidden. and you can start living into those. And so that's what the lunar eclipse does. It brings things up from the surface, and it's like, oh, wow, this is in here. I got to change this. I got to fix this. Or I have to hide it and let it come up next time. And then the solar eclipse is usually the changes that happen because of that deep internal shifting. So it's like, okay, so actually physical shifting. So things in your life start changing and you start seeing it in visible, tangible forms. So for example, this one was big on relationships. The lunar eclipse was like the Aries Libra axis. It was all about, what is your relationship stuff? And so how do you find balance between meeting your own needs and meeting the needs of a partnership or a relationship? And how do you stand in the middle of that axis and really figure out what you need to do? And how do you awaken the warrior and the lover at the same time? How do you stand in the middle of that axis point? And so that, like, there are a lot of shifts that happen in relationships, and I saw this in my practice for sure, not in my personal life at all. No, I'm joking. It happened for everybody, so we're all sharing this together.
Sure.
And so now the solar eclipse is Scorpio, and it's a Scorpio new moon, and so it's like the new beginning that arises from some of these changes that you have made. So when we're talking about understanding the spiritual significance of each planet, we have to look at the multiple layers of meaning of each symbol. And so that's the first. I have like a process that I've started, like a process that I've developed for how do you make the most of any transit. And I'll talk about each step of the process. But the process is, and I'll lay it out for you, understand the spiritual significance of each planet. Look at the transit. Look at what is involved. Is it a square? Is it a sextile? We'll talk about that. I know some of you might be new to astrology, so I won't lose you. I won't leave you in the dark. Then look at the planet's position in your birth chart. What's the story? What does that planet want to tell you? What is the story of that planet? And then, do you like the story? Do you like the story of what the sun is doing in your life? Do you like the story of your Saturn? Do you like that Saturn story? If not, how might you change it? And then that is where the opportunity for growth happens. So we look at the spiritual significance of Scorpio. So Scorpio follows Libra. The zodiac is like one big story, from Aries, which is the new beginning, all the way through to the very end. The zodiac represents the wholeness of us, of each of us, but of everything. It represents cycles. So, like the Bible and the birds say, there's a season for everything. There's a time for everything. And so by understanding where the sun is at any given time, we can see what part of the cycle, what part of the year is most represented. And so Libra is all about partnership and harmony, and that's where the sun has been since September 23rd, the equinox. And so it's all about, understanding how much of yourself you give to participate in relationship with others. So a lot about balance, a lot about harmony. And wait, hang on one second. And we'll get to we have some questions in here. So we have some questions that I just noticed that are about the eclipse. So I'm gonna go back. We'll get back to the spiritual significance of Scorpio. Pause right there. Say don't change that dial. We're gonna come back. But first we got to go to what is the setting intentions for the eclipse. So yes, solar eclipse is a new moon. New moon is always a time to start setting intentions, to really sort of like focus. What is magic? Magic is participation with everything, and it's focused light. It's like focusing your intention and bringing God, bringing all of the elements, bringing that through. So saying, I want love. I want a loving partnership. Or I'm ready to welcome more abundance into my life financially. Or I want, my family to heal. Or I want this illness to heal, So setting that intention, saying, this is what I want to create. But, do that with the season in mind. So if the moon's in Scorpio, or the moon and sun in Scorpio, with the solar eclipse in Scorpio, then the intention that you can set is how do you understand your unity with other people, and how does that unity to support your wholeness financially in terms of your resources? How does your unity with others help to inform your sense of personal power? How do you exercise that power in a loving, gentle way while still being a force to be reckoned with, in the world? So these are some of the intentions that you might be wanting to set, that you might take advantage of this new moon, of this eclipse, and start really. So you don't have to you don't have to blow up bombs and cut off people, or you don't have to make drastic changes, but making some subtle changes just opens up, creates space. So then God, the universe, the divine can enter into those spaces that you've opened up and work miracles. And that is bliss. If there's anything that is bliss, that's it. That's it right there. It's us working in partnership with everything. It's us working in partnership with the earth, the air, the fire, the water, and with the divine light coming through and filling in those spaces that have been dark. So that's a little bit about how to make the most and how to use that eclipse energy. It's powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I think we're already feeling it, because also Mercury's in retrograde, so we're already turned inward. We're already going into our shells and starting to take out the soft squishy pieces, the little vulnerable pieces of ourselves, and we're saying, okay, I'm ready for this soft squishy piece to come out. I'm ready for it to be exposed, and to trust that I'm protected, to trust that I'm safe, in revealing parts of myself. I'm safe in opening myself up. I'm safe in letting my heart expand, my heart grow, and I'm safe in connecting. And so that's the spiritual significance of this time. Libra's harmony, partnership. Scorpio is, but it's also the surface. Libra is ruled by Venus, and Venus is all about beauty and fashion, and it's makeovers and all this sort of external stuff. And so it's, how do we attract people? How are we attractive to people? And so we get into Scorpio, and Scorpio is like, okay, forget about that. What's underneath it? And then from that exploration of Scorpio is the time when the sun's in Scorpio, we have the Day of the Dead. We have some people say that the veil between the worlds is really thin, and I believe that. So our ancestors reach out to us. They talk. They communicate with us. We see those symbols of our ancestors talking to us. If you find little coins laying in your path, or feathers in your path, or, you start paying attention and finding what those messages mean. And so we move into Scorpio, and Scorpio helps us to uncover some of that, the unnameable, the unseen. It helps us to really get in and start picking apart our psychological makeup and saying what's true, what's real. And then we move into Sagittarius in December, and Sagittarius is all about knowing and belief. So we take that inner working and we move it to faith. And Sagittarius rules faith, and it rules spirituality and religion and the philosophy and the higher mind. So we go from deep, deep, deep in the underworld to the heavens. And we say, this is what I believe. This is what I see. This is how I connect to God, to the divine. And so, if you've ever met a Sagittarius, you know that they are so focused on truth. This is truth. What is true? What is not true? And so we move into Sagittarius. And so that's sort of the spiritual significance of this time that we're entering next week, is with the sun's moving into Scorpio. So we can looking at what Sag means, we can say, okay, this is how I make the most of Scorpio.
It's almost like some behavior patterns might be arising out of us that we're not even aware that existed.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And the light's being shown on those. And you'll see this in your relationships. So we understand the spiritual significance. Then we look at the transit. We look at what's happening. Each transit offers something different. So in your own personal charts, you look at, is the sun squaring my sun? Where is the lunar eclipse? Where is the solar eclipse in my chart? What is the symbol of a square? The square is tension. It's internal tension. You know, when something's 90 degrees, there's gravitational pull. That's square is 90 degrees away. And so when there's tension and there's gravitational pull, like we have to have tension in order to stand upright. Otherwise we'd be falling. Right? Like if it's too easy, like we just lay down. A conjunction is just like, yeah, it's easy. But a square, it's like, we have to have tension in order to really to get a perspective, to be able to see things. And so, you know, so we can look at any one particular transit and say, okay, this is the spiritual significance of this transit. I'm getting this tension in my life. I'm getting this breakup. I'm getting this job change. I'm getting whatever this is because I need to see something from a different perspective. And so then you look at where the planet's natal position is. And the natal position is what sign is it in? What house is it in? And what planets are relating to it astrologically, like in your chart. And you say, what's the story of that? What is the story of that planet? So if the sun is in Scorpio, sun, what is sun? We already said sun is heart. It rules the heart. It's the center of you. It's the life force. It's what is guiding you, where you shine in your life. What's the story? If the sun's in Scorpio, the story is, if the sun's in Scorpio in the third house, the story is your light shines bright, your heart beats when you are dealing in the depths of your psyche or other people's, or when you're healing, when you're transforming, when you are in a process of major spiritual growth and looking at issues of death and rebirth. And then third house is communication. So your light shines brightest in those scorpionic influences, and when you are communicating about them, when you're writing, when you're talking, when you're sharing. And so that's the story of your sun. And your sun might be relating to other influences in your chart. Those are other parts of your personality. And so then you know, when you label it, when you tell that story, you attain some sort of mastery over it. I think God, speaking of which, Emoto, Masuro Emoto, God, rest in peace. He was the man who wrote the hidden Messages in Water. Yeah, thank you. And he actually scientifically proved this. What he did was he took crystallized water molecules and labeled them, or took water from the same sources and labeled them, and then studied their molecules and found that each one was different based on what it was named. And so there's so much power. When we call water ugly, it has a different look and a different molecular structure than we call it beautiful, or when we call it gratitude, or when we label it gratitude. Our words, our stories, our symbols all inform us. They empower us, actually. They just don't just inform us, they empower us. And so we can recreate our stories. We can revisit and reframe some of the symbols in our charts to really have power in our lives. And so if you don't like the story of your sun, if you don't like your sun in Scorpio, or you don't like certain ways in which your sun in Scorpio has played out, then what you can do is you can reframe that. So you can say, my sun's in Scorpio. I'm kind of obsessed with death. I'm a funeral director. Yep, I like death. I like research. I like really intense research. I like focus. And if that has been challenged in any way, if you were ridiculed for that, or you were shunned for it, or something like that, then reframe it. Change the story. And when you change your story, you're essentially changing, just like when you relabel water, you're changing the way you look. So physical appearance, actually. You're changing the way your body responds, and you're changing the way events play out in your life. So, so that's one, that's your formula for how do you deal with some of these interesting dynamic times. And so we have 2 minutes left.
We can go a little longer if you like.
Okay, thanks.
We've got a lot to cover, so.
Yeah. So this is all this is all like, I think if we look at like what you can do, everyone knows their sun sign. Everyone knows what sign their sun is in. If you're Aries, if you're Gemini, if you're Taurus, if you're Virgo, you know that. And so that's one place that you can start. You can start with, what is the story of my sun? What is my life story? And maybe what you might want to do is like, sort of figure out how your light, because this is Moon in Leo. Leo rules the sun. The sun rules the heart. The sun is that the strongest influence in our lives and in our bodies. And so what you might want to do in really understanding how to make the most of this eclipse and retrograde period is you might want to tell the story of your sun and really get in touch with what, with how you can recreate your story in order to recreate your life and your basic self-expression. I'm doing my master's thesis on some of this, and one thing that's really interesting to me is how I'm not going to take a complete constructivist position, but how so much of our lives are sort of driven by the relationships that we're in and by our culture and the cultural norms and ideas of who we should be from our parents. And so our sun has like all these layers of definition that aren't ours.
Yes.
And so when we go back and we say, what's mine? Strip away the layers of what's mom's or what's my religion's or what's my sister or what's my partner. What is their story of who I am? Because your sun is always acting in relationship with other people's suns and other people's planets. And so you need to strip away some of that and get down to the basics of who am I? Where do I shine? Where do I want to shine? And where that place is, and when you redefine that, then you get one step closer to really living into your bliss, in living into your purpose. And so I'm your cheerleader here. Yeah. I want you to do this. I want you to go for it. I want your suns to shine as brightly as possible. And any area that they're in your chart and in your life, I want that to blisten, so to speak, to shine. I want that to be as big and bold as it possibly can. And so I send you off into this week, into this really powerful eclipse week. With that task. And so that concludes our show today. And next week, we have a really exciting week. I have Damona Hoffman, who is the host of a UBN show, Dates and Mates. And she is a love guru and a matchmaking coach, and she is just dynamite. I love her so much. She's like, she's a force. She's a love force is what I'm going to call her. And she is coming to talk about, about how do you find your soulmate? How do you know when it's the one? And what can you do in your life to draw in that sacred connection? So we're talking about that, and we'll hear about her, and we'll talk about her chart and her love and her relationships, and we'll give some real tips for you for how to draw in the one. So that's next week, and that's Friday, October 24th. So thank you so much to Sharon Weil, the sponsor for today's show, Donnie and Ursula, Save the World. Go check it out. Thanks to Valerie Madden Creative. Valerie is a graphic design genius. She's creative. She's like tenacious. She's determined. She's amazing. So check her out, ValerieMaddenCreative.com. Michelle Polino, who I'm going to have on this show one of these days because she knows astrology and she knows celebrities, and she's really just brilliant. Love her. So her and Lori Gold, who is another one of my creative team, Allison Lang, who is a graphic design genius, and of course John Williams.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who was listening today. And you can always reach me at blissenup.com, on Facebook, Blissen Up with Rachel, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Stitcher, YouTube. Please pass it on. The more you share this show, the more we can bring astrology and the symbols of astrology into mainstream conversation, and the more our lives become enriched and become more spiritually attuned. So thank you so much. Tune in next week and have a wonderful eclipse week.